In each episode, I will interview dynamic, creative, innovative, and interesting role models and profiles. And today is no exception, because today I'm meeting a man who's been quoted to be the man who shot the 70s. He's the glam rock photographer, Mick Rock.
You learn, I think that was the good thing, even though it was kind of, not exactly Richard Avedon back in those days. Photograph anything, anywhere. Performance, backstage, parties, and then of course studio. So you do from raw to elegant, you can shoot it any which way. Well, I'll give you this anyway.
Exactly. Oh, now we get to the interview. Okay, nice.
That's for my new book with Lou Reed.
Yeah, I saw it. Oh, my uncle has been a Lou Reed fan since he was. So I've gone to a lot of Lou Reed's concerts.
I get so many photos of Lou in the 70s when he was hot stuff.
And I mean, all of these, Lou Reed, Iggy Pop, David Bowie, Mick Jagger, I mean, not only did you...
Not really Mick Jagger.
Okay.
I mean, I have a bit, but not... No, I mean, he's in some of the pictures, but really Lou and David and Iggy and Debbie and certain other, and Queen, of course, and even Rocky Horror.
But it seems like you became friends. It wasn't only you as a photographer,
no,
there was
I was
a
never
chemistry.
I never felt like an outsider. I totally, I was into fucking lunatic poets. I'm looking at them like they're like that. And inside me, that's exactly what I am. And now I look back at some of the early photographs, and like I see that right there. That could have been taken. Well, the colour would have been different, but could have definitely been taken in the 19th century.
Beautiful.
And that was before he'd fully metamorphosed. I mean, he had the hairdo and was wearing interesting clobber, but that was before the release of Starman, which was a single off Ziggy Stardust. And so it was an interesting moment, in fact. And that was the session where he said, Mick sees me the way I see me.
That's
so
interesting.
I think he meant it was, and he'd been photographed, even though he wasn't very well known at that point. He was, he was very alert to photographs and to the power of photographs. That's why you've seen pictures of, loads of stuff that had nothing to do with me, but he's very, zoned in. Doesn't matter who's taking the photograph, because he's taking the photograph, in a way.
But do you find, has your way of, shooting or your way, your sense of imagery or style, has it changed during the years?
Probably.
Anything that you sort of been...
Well, probably. I think they're always fairly high key. But, this is 72. It's very... And of course, some of this stuff, that and Lou, I mean, look, there's some snapping as well and performance stuff. But of course, as the years went on, and I'd do a lot of stuff on locations as well. Didn't have to be studio, but I became much more... I mean, the early Sid Barrett pictures, I was kind of choreographing them. I mean, it was all based on what I was seeing. Like a naked girl running around, or the car. And of course, the amazing Sid, who was my friend by the time I took these pictures. So, but I like to choreograph a session. Whatever, I mean, you've got to let it breathe. It's not really directing.
No, but creating an image, like you said, all the ingredients.
It's building... I never read any books about photography. Oof, boring. And frankly, photographers, and today, I mean, your average 3-year-old can take a good picture on their iPhone or on a tiny camera. There's a different... That's why this stuff gets to be called art today, which it wouldn't when it was, it was just rock and roll photography when it was formed. But I did see these pictures through that prism, these characters, starting with Sid, through the prism of these wayward poets. And then, of course, there was the other association, which you had referred to while we were talking earlier, which is that a lot of them had been into altered states, you might say, whether it was William Blake or any of the poets that I mentioned. And then out came shit that people call works of genius. So I remember thinking, oh, wow, that's interesting. So the first thing I was going to do when I got to Cambridge was get a little out of order, check out this altered state thing.
And it
so
worked.
that's altered states is the key to. It's a dangerous key, but nevertheless to evolution in thinking. It's in the aberration that the vision comes. I mean, if Lou Reed, David Bowie, and Iggy Pop were not aberrants by the standards of 1972, you can imagine. I mean, there was long hair on boys, but it wasn't, you know. I remember going around to because Lou wanted to know about everything, and I wanted to. And certainly the gay thing that was popping up everywhere at that time.
Sort of like a Adroner.
Well, yeah, I mean, gay men, with all due respect to straight men. So is Mick Rock gay or straight? I've
For
had
the
people have
record?
that. But no, the thing about gay men, I did learn a lot, not about sex, but about creativity. And they were more fun. So I was drawn to that kind of energy. I mean, there was, you had to put up with somebody whispering in your ear, or you hold a hand here and there, but, you know, you can put that away. So, and that was going on, you know, but definitely gay and bisexual men. But look how huge their influence on the culture has been. And look at an Andy Warhol, who is also part of this story. He was only up on the wall once, but I have a great session with Andy and Truman Capote, and Andy is in a Santa Claus outfit. So he had a sense of humour about fame, no doubt whatsoever. You couldn't read it, except for that fucking wig. It was like a signal, you know, I'm not taking, even though I wanted desperately, which he claimed to. I mean, he wasn't taking it too seriously, plus he understood that a cartoon was good. If you could turn yourself into some kind of cartoon, like all these rock and rollers do, they become like a cartoon, a certain idea of them. I mean, of course, that David Bowie character has been very tricky over the years, because he ducked and weaved and darted and changed, and now you see him, now you don't. I called him the Scarlet Pimpernel of rock years ago.
That's a good one.
He was slipping and sliding, and you couldn't quite catch the bugger, which was complete. And I know one or two people thought because of it, he wasn't authentic. I remember thinking, what, because he's not stuck? Because he experiments? Because he's even prepared to do stuff that may not be so popular? We go, well, he's an artist. He was always an artist. And that's how I saw these people. Yeah, rock and rollers, but artists. Yeah, and that was important, I think, in the way the imagery came out.
The way you captured it.
And why all this iconic stuff, whatever that's all about, that I get thrown around a lot these days. But, yeah, I mean, and that kind of imagery is transcendent. So it's not, that was taken in 72, but in a way it could maybe have been taken yesterday, you see. So
Absolutely.
I think I know a lot of photography, and that's part of its appeal, looks very of its period. But even though a lot of this was born in the, I don't think it necessarily, and I think part of that, of course, is the people themselves. I mean, they were always a bit otherworldly. I saw them less as, I saw them more like woodland creatures. They were creatures to me.
In what
I
sense?
bought into them. Well, they were kind of magical creatures, rather than, they weren't quite human. They were more Jungian, in a way, you know.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, people say, well, I just spend a lot of time thinking. I don't think about photography hardly at all. I never have. Unless it's, I want to do this, I'm not sure how to do it, check with the assistant, and then I know how to do it.
But I mean, don't you live and breathe it in a sense? Isn't
No,
it addictive?
fuck that.
I mean, it's a way of life.
No.
Really?
No, I was a prisoner. totally. And I remember in the period of time when I had been so out of order that it was difficult to make money. Plus the art value thing hadn't kicked in. Nowadays, if I didn't shoot, I could live, okay. Except for that would be boring.
That's what I mean. So it is a bit, I mean, it's a way of life, and it must be a
Well,
passion.
I don't think it's a way of life so much. It's more like a drug. Without it, I'm not sure where I'd be. And if
That's
I can't do it
addiction.
for certain periods, I feel it. I feel it. Even though I do yoga every day and get lots of massages, I need to, throw up in a way. And that's why the fun for me, for a long time now, even though I've shot other, different things, is for me to choreograph the session. Not direct it, but create the environment. What I was going to say to you earlier, but what I remember is an actor friend of mine showing me a book by a guy called Stanislavski, who was, you know
Theatre,
who he is? Yeah. He's like the godfather of Lee Strasberg
Exactly.
and
all the theatre actor method acting.
And he, in one of these chapters, talked. Well, he was talking about theatre, but to me, it applies, to any activity where you bring people together and you need to produce something out of that situation. He said, you bring them into a raw space and you build a circle of concentration. Because once you've built the circle of concentration, things can happen almost on their own. I mean, yes, you become an instrument. You become a, what do you call it, a vehicle.
Yeah.
Or, you're more, and often I've felt like that. Not that it's like I'm an instrument. No, it's like, I'm out to wrestle tigers today because, that is why. I suppose you can use the word destiny, and I do look around and think, maybe not everybody grasps their destiny, but me in my insecurity did grasp. I mean, sometimes it's very insecure people that grasp their destiny, and I think I was very insecure. Not about the girls, I always did well there, but that was hardly enough, So it was I did want to be an artist. And I do a lot of photo art and have done for a lot of years, which is a whole other. And I've done a lot of photography that is still very rock and roll, but it's not a famous face. It's not, of course, I'm going to come to Stockholm, we'd like to see David Bowie and Iggy Pop, if you don't mind, Mick. We love the artist stuff, but could you bring Ziggy and Iggy?
Yeah, which is...
So I brought, plus they're beautiful creatures, I mean, look. But you can see how they're kind of not quite human, not inhuman, but there's certain, they're like shimmerers, in a way. They're exotics. Even, I mean, Debbie was actually getting quite well known when I shot her, but really none of these characters were. Yeah, Carly and Ozzy and the Ramones, but
But
so
when,
I can't
when,
explain it to you. I'm having an entertaining time talking to you.
Well, that's
if you want me to make common sense out of it, I can't.
No, I just want to hear your thoughts. But I'm thinking, you also mentioned that you photograph a lot of, well, not only legends, but what intrigues you in a person when you in a photo session? Is there
I think I'm more interested in the aura. There's a quote that has been bandied about a bit of mine from the first book I did in '95, where I say I'm not into I'm not into personality. I'm not into photographing personality or reality. Okay. I'm into like chasing shadows and bottling auras, and that's really what it is. It's not like, oh, I want that day-to-day gritty reality. Even when I photographed them backstage, it didn't really look like that. So that's my answer to that. And of course, there is a certain amount of inspiration coming from the idea of Andy Warhol.
Of course,
yeah, partly
I've seen
because
that.
of knowing him, although not something I knew him because of Lou Reed. And he, look at him, Mick Jagger, couldn't be more pleased to somebody than he is seeing Mad Andy. Look at him.
I know.
Silly sod. Because Andy was, and Andy's fame, but it's become ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah, he's
even though it's
definitely.
everything, and he was very famous in his life, but his art sells unbelievable amounts of money.
But I also think that this is an era that will never come back, and therefore it becomes
you're
even
probably
more
right.
iconized.
No, it's like Paris
And
in the
it's-
30s,
yeah.
in that sense.
The
I
whole-
think so.
the-
That decade of the, the
Studio
60s was like
54.
the setup. And yes, of course, there was great music, and of course the Rolling Stones were really naughty boys. But something else happened in the 70s, of which they were still part of, and certainly John Lennon was. But he's another, you know, because he was out in left lane and whatever, up to all kinds of interesting stuff. An experimenter. Somebody, if it's there, I'd like to know about it. Of course, I would sometimes end up places and I go, I'm not sure I should be here. Because
But I'm happy I am.
But it looks maybe a little bit too over there for me, you know, and sneak out the door and no one's looking.
But do you think that now when you photograph sort of up-and-coming rock artists or groups, is it as dynamic or is it a different, I mean,
Well,
like we
I'm
said...
older for a start, and I have this track record, and they know about it when they walk in the door. So I have that room to manoeuvre, and I like photographing.
And I'm thinking as well, because there are a lot of aspiring photographers, I'm sure there are a lot of photographers and other people who see you as a role model. What are sort of,
For God's
could you
sake.
I mean, that's a good thing. Of course you're a
I
role
know
model.
that it is a good thing.
Of course it is.
Now
I mean,
behave yourself, don't get in there.
but I'm thinking, what sort of pieces of advice, if they're
Don't
aspirational?
would be my first one.
Don't try.
Don't. No, don't forget about it.
Okay, don't try
It's
drugs.
like a fucking disease.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
when you get that buzz,
So don't
it's
go
hard
into
to get rid of.
the dark alley.
Oh, the dark alley of photography. Yes.
But as a photographer, what sort of
I'd
key...
say the main thing I would say, I think, is follow your obsession, because then you can. The collection is more valuable if. You know, the obvious thing. I mean, if you're into, I'm into daffodils. You photograph every daffodil in the entire world, and you become the most famous daffodil photographer of all time. And maybe they give you lots of money for your pictures of daffodils. I'm not sure there's that much money in daffodils, but maybe if you're a great photographer of flowers, maybe you did something different. You know, I mean, basically followed my obsessions. I was in an altered state, so you can.
But then again, your obsessions, because you're not categorized as a niched photographer, you sort of do as
I'm
your
tricky.
passion, which is...
Yeah, I mean,
and
I
that's what
don't. I
mean.
realise I don't have a technical,
No.
specific look. Like most of the successful advertising photographers, you know, they do the same thing all the time, and the reason is they get paid a lot of money, so they'll do it.
What do you
The problem with a lot of fashion photography is it's over art directed. So it's beautiful maybe, but frozen. Doesn't, you know, it doesn't not move you, but it doesn't it's like ice cream maybe, not that I eat ice cream. You have it and it's great and then it's gone. That's why most magazines are disposable.
So why do you think that your art or your photography, why do you think it's so appreciated? What do you actually like about
I
it?
can't. You'd have to ask other people who
what-
you say appreciate it to know why. I don't know.
But why?
I wouldn't have a clue.
But you appreciate it? Or is it
Yeah, no,
difficult to-
I look around. I like them. I like the pictures. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm only going to shoot pictures I like. And if I've agreed to do it, I'm going to get the picture. So it's, and that was always like that.
And
I mean, I like things to. I tend towards the prettier side of life, if you like. I mean, I played around, but even when punk rock came along, it was interesting. But you know, I mean, she was fabulous. You see, I love her. See that one, female Elvis, was what I was thinking.
Definitely.
That was the first time I'd met her at a shop. No, I'd seen her play, and the lawyer had introduced us. But she's one of my favourite, and of course Miss Deborah.
Yeah, let's take a look at it. What do you prefer, black and white or color, or doesn't it matter?
Anything.
Anything.
I don't care.
It's just what you feel at the moment.
Yeah, some people are purists. I'm a creature of the music business. That's what spawned me. Without the music, I wouldn't have been a photographer because I had no role models that I cared about. Until later on, Man Ray, not so much a role model, but he would lurk around the edges that people say, well, you need to have a certain look, Mick. I mean, you do it all. I said, well, yeah, all circumstances are different. I mean, there are certain things I maybe get into a little bit. There's a certain top light I play around with. There's daylight, which I love, through the window. But, you know, I'll shoot it any fucking which way but Saturday to get the picture.
But I mean, it must be fun.
Ah, well,
Must be.
Don't be telling everybody about the fun, as they will all want to do it. Therein lies, well, I think, whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it creativity, that's convenient. But, I mean, if it's not fun, why the fuck are you doing it? Oh, I'm a masochist. I'm torturing myself. That's why I'm doing it.
No,
but
but
that's
it's
not me.
like it's like Albert Einstein said: creativity is intelligence having fun.
I think that's true.
I was thinking,
Well,
you know, we
You
Swedes...
told me, listen, this is not spontaneous at all. She talked to me about it all beforehand.
And now it doesn't look that yummy. But in
Absolutely doesn't,
Swedes,
but I'll drink it.
We do
If
skål.
you will.
Of course I will. You never know what's inside. But skål, we have a
Okay.
tradition of drinking vodka shots. But
Okay.
as I know that you don't drink alcohol, and as
No.
we're all into health, I bought a nice little wheatgrass with a lot of orange.
It's not just about health, though. It's
About
about
living.
it's about recycling brain cells.
Oh.
That's what the light and sound machine does. They always say you keep losing brain cells, but the truth of it is, if you apply stimulation, I do believe they regurgitate. They what's the word?
Regenerate.
Regenerate.
Yeah.
Yes, that you can. And for years, doctors thought that couldn't happen, but with the brain machines
Wow.
and the yoga and all this stuff.
Here's to yoga, brain machines, rock and roll lifestyle, and Mick Rock.
And an interesting life.